Good morning. Welcome back to another video here from Hobbies and Stuff in the Shed. So, it is a beautiful, crisp August morning here, and I just want to take a moment to just enjoy the beautiful weather. Fresh air. What more can you ask for than a nice, bright, sunny morning? So, here's what we're going to do. I got a little bit of time before work. It's about 7 a.m. And my wristwatch has been bugging me. So, let me tell you the problem that I got with the wristwatch. So, so what I like to do, I like to wear, my wristwatch with what's called a Nato strap. So it's a strap that goes around the watch and then kind of ties up like that, right? So let me take this off and I'll show you. Actually, you know what? Give me a second. I'm going to put this thing on a stand so I can use two hands. I'll be right back. That's better. So, here's my wristwatch. Okay? So, for anyone who has never really worn a NATO strap before, what's really neat about it is the way that it's set up. So with a normal wristwatch, or with usual wrist straps, what happens is give me a second here. There we go. Okay. So these bars here, I don't remember, it's too early in the morning for me to remember the exact words, but basically, normally what winds up happening is you have a strap that goes around this bar here, and you've got two, one on each side. And then you do your buckle in the middle, and if you've never worn a wristwatch before, grow up a little bit, I guess. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. With the NATO strap, though, what's really cool about it is the strap starts out, so you got the buckle bit here, and you got a couple rings, and it's folded over itself, and you got the tail end here, okay? But the main strap goes through your first bar, and then it loops underneath the second bar, and then this goes around your wrist. So this kind of strap first became popular during, I think it was the Second World War, because what would happen is pilots would need to wear a wristwatch, but of course they're in a World War II airplane, so it's cold, so they need to wear it around their coat. So what they would do is they would just cut a right big long strap, wrap it around the wrist of their cuff of their coat, and then they could wear a wristwatch while they're flying. And if one of these bars breaks, you still have the other one, and because this strap is all wrapped around your wrist, you can still have this thing flopping around and you're not going to lose your watch, which is what I really like about this, because I have had that happen before where I've broken one of these bars and the thing's flopping around while I'm doing some yard work, right? So anyway, the reason I'm telling you all this is because I have a bit of a problem with this last one that I made. So if you see the holes, I made them with one of my fancy new rotary punches. I made them in these long oval holes, which at the time seemed like a great idea. But in practice, what winds up happening is my day job is on a computer. I sit still for like 8, 9, 10 hours in a day. And so my blood pressure drops a little bit. Surprise, I'm old. So what winds up happening is my wrist shrinks a little bit, and then the wristwatch is loose and flopping around. So normally what I would do in that situation is I would just tighten it to the next hole up. But because I was silly and I made these holes like 3 times normal size, the next hole up space is too tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to redo this. Oh, and another problem that I have. So this particular leather, I made this from the Crazy Horse buffalo leather that my coat and my hat and a bunch of other things are made out of. I just love this leather. It looks so nice. But excuse me, I didn't realize at first that the dye that's in this particular leather, it runs a little bit when I sweat. So I would be out in the yard, I'm doing something, and having a good day, and then next thing you know, I've got this orange bar across my wrist from the dye leaching its way out of here. It washed off when I had a shower. It's not the end of the world, but still, if I'm gonna be making something like this, I mean, why not solve two problems with the same stone, you know? So here's what we're gonna do. Oh, and the other thing too, you saw when I was trying to take this apart. This is about a 5-ounce leather, so it was putting a little bit of extra pressure on that little bar there. And when I take this on and off, like it's just a hair too thick, I think. So the last time that I was at Tandy, I bought a side of natural veg tan leather, and this is a 3 to 4, maybe 4 to 5 ounce. Either way, it's going to be a little bit thinner than what I was working with here, and the natural veg tan leather doesn't have any dyes. So when I wear it and I get sweaty, I'm not going to have any colors leaching onto my skin. And this is going to make for a fun, quick little video, because anyone who has a wristwatch, you can do this. The hardware that we're going to be needing for this job is 1, 2, 3 rings and a buckle. So we're going to be making this wristwatch for, I don't know, 20 bucks, if that, if I'm including the leather. Because these buckles, these rings, they're like $2-3 a piece. I think you get them in multi-packs. I'll have to look at my receipts. Anyway, bottom line, not very expensive. So, bear with me for a minute while I get the camera flipped around and set up, and we'll get to it. See you soon. Alright, so for this job, we're going to be using our new non-slip ruler. Watch one of my other videos. We've got our wristwatch. Oh, I need to get my new hardware. Give me a second here. Oh, hey, there's a receipt. I should go file in my shoebox. Oh, excuse me. Here we are. So, for this job, okay, so the strap buckle. So my buckle was $2.50, and my loops, I got 3 of them at $2.50 each. So we're looking at about, so 3 at 2.50, so that's about $8, and then another 2.50, so that's like less than $15 Canadian. Throw some tax and beer money in there and you're all set, kind of thing. So for this one, because I have a black watch, I have decided to go with black buckles, black rings. Okay. And oh, I'm gonna need my knife. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to start with a new blade on my knife. Make sure we can get some good, perfect, clean cuts. Okay. Let's see here. As Micro says, safety third. And, oh, I should also say, even though I've got Tandy logos on everything here, I'm not sponsored by Tandy. I bought all this by my own money. And I'm not selling this particular project. This is just something I'm just doing for myself. That being said, if you do want to buy a wristwatch strap off me, give me a call. So I did take a ruler before I went and bought everything. And this bar here is 3/4 of an inch. Now every wristwatch is going to be slightly different. So when you do this for your watch, take a minute, do the measuring, make sure you get the right width hardware, because the last thing you want is to wind up with the wrong sizes and stuff. And okay, so we're gonna start with just a long strip of the vegetable tan leather. Let me angle this so I can see a little bit better. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to start by cracking open our roll of leather. There we go. And now this particular side of leather, I believe it is the Economy Veg Tan from Tandy. And now, personally, I really like the Economy line from Tandy because that's the one that has scratches, it has marks, it has branding. It's not like super amazing, best quality in the world, but the price is right. It's about the cheapest one I've been able to find anywhere. And personally, I like the rough spots. I like the markings. I like seeing the places where the mosquitoes were eating at the cow, because at the end of the day, leather is a natural, organic product, and I don't think things that are made from natural products should look like they're manufactured in a factory out of plastic. But that's just me. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by getting a good straight line. Now, our original strap was probably about the length of this ruler, give or take. For the time that now I'm not going to completely tear it apart, because I actually might want to use this again later. But if we figure there, and then maybe a little bit of extra room. So I'm going to start by going and marking out a straight line with using our ruler here. Okay. Keep this roughly in line. There. So I'm going to start by cutting that straight line there. Now, if we were if I was doing this for a client, I would take up a little bit more space on the table. I'd make sure that my lines are super, super straight, that kind of thing. But this thing, I'm going to be the one wearing it, and I figure if things are a little rough, a little odd, then, you know, I can fix them. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so I need to go 3/4 of an inch. So now that I've got my straight line, oh, close that up. Let's do a mark here for 3/4 of an inch. Okay. And yes, I probably could be using my red ruler, but the red ruler is in centimeters. And I am Canadian, which means that distances for me are all over the map. Okay. For anyone who's Canadian, you'll know what I mean. You know, we judge the distance traveled in a car, sometimes by, we'll say something's so many kilometers away. Sometimes we'll say something is so many hours away. I know my father, he was born in the 50s, so he says miles all the time. But then when he actually gets in the car and looks at the map, he'll say kilometers. We measure, most of the time we'll wind up measuring things in inches because, you know, sometimes an inch is just what you need. Sometimes you use centimeters. My fellow Canadians, we are an odd duck, aren't we, sometimes? Okay, so there. And there. Oh, I went off my mark there a little bit. Okay. So, let's give this a cut. Now, am I still 3/4 of an inch down here? So I suspect I'm going to wind up having to trim this a little bit before I'm done. But that's okay. Because the other thing too is I am definitely not going to be using this entire strip. Like, this piece I'm cutting off here is definitely going to be longer than I need. But, you know the old saying, measure twice and cut once? Well, I always wind up cutting twice. So let's give ourselves a little room for error, right? Okay. So, put this off to the side. Got big plans for that thing. So let's start by seeing how close we are to the mark of being able to get this thing through our loops here. So we're able to pull through and up. See, I'm a little too wide here. Okay. So let's take our ruler again and let's trim you up a little bit. Okay. Now, another way that you could have done, that I could have done this, was I could have got the strap cutter out, measured it, and then pulled it and cut it. Nothing wrong with that either. Honestly, I just, I just really like using my new ruler, my new knife. Okay, so, and the other thing too is that for anyone who's watching this, you might not have a strap cutter. You know, maybe that is a tool you just haven't invested in yet, right? Okay, so here we are, okay, so I'm at the right width through here. I just run it through here. Yep, so I've got the right width until I get down here. Yep. So now the trouble is, I don't know if the camera's going to pick up on it or not, but up here is just a little bit thinner than back here. So what I am going to do, let's get my skiving knife out. I don't do very much skiving, but this is a situation where a little skiving is going to be called for. Now this is one thing that does happen with this economy veg tan from Tandy, is that the leather does tend to vary in thickness. So like it'll say 4 to 5 ounce, and it really is 4 to 5, maybe even 3 in some spots on the edges, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, at the price that you pay for this leather from Tandy, I'm getting what I paid for. It's not a perfect cut of leather, but if you got one of these, you can make almost anything work, right? Okay. Alright, let's try that again. Okay, oh, I'm a little too thick, too wide there. Okay. So let's trim her down there. Okay. And I am pulling through nice and smooth. Perfect. I'm going to skive down a little bit more at the end here, because that was just a little too thick. I could feel it wanting to push just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now, where did my scissors go? Ah, here we are. Okay, so I'm going to start by squaring off the ends at the top here. And if I look to my old one here, so the way you have to start the one end with this doubled over loop for our first ring, right? So let me get my stitching chisel out. Where did they go? Okay, this is going to take a minute. I'll be back. Aha! Found them. They were on the couch under a pillow. Okay, so we are going to do, see, that's 3mm. Yeah, let's go with our 3mm. I'm missing a couple of these. Let that be a lesson to future Tim. Put things back where they're supposed to go. Alright, so now if I do 4mm, is that any better spacing? No. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I think I found the perfect one. Okay, so I've got these stitching chisels, and that's going to give me 4 holes right in the center without like splitting it on the ends. This is going to be the perfect one that I'm looking for. So that's honestly what part of why I have like a couple different styles and sizes, because I find more often than not the things I'm looking for are like, I'm the kind of guy I would much rather have a handful of tools I use once in a while than have 1 or 2 tools that I'm always trying to source out or find or like jerry rig a little bit, right? Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our first loop out here, and we're gonna put this through here and find where feels good, because every one of the depending on which kind of a ring you get, I don't want to say like go exactly 3 inches or exactly 1/4 inch or whatever. These ones I like to kind of go by feel to see what's gonna feel right, because I don't want to make it too tight, too loose, whatever, right? So that there feels about right. Okay, so now hold up there, do that there. Okay. Alright, so you can see I've got 1 set of holes and then a mark there. So I know, even though I didn't go all the way through, I at least know where to go through next. So I can put this here, and then put this here. Okay, so that's that. So let's get this sewn up. And for my thread color, the last one I did in orange. This time, you know what, let's go with a chocolate brown. Because the way I figure, at some point I'm going to wind up getting dirt on my wrists, I'm going to get sweaty. If it starts out brown, when it gets brown, it's not a big deal. Okay. And then get our sewing needles out here. Okay, that'll do. So here's one needle. And here's another needle. Okay. And now I'm gonna have more than I need, but I'm gonna just do like a foot and a half or so of thread here, because I like to have a little bit more that I can kind of tug on a little bit. I don't want to be so conservative with my thread that I'm having a hard time threading it through the stitching holes. Okay. Plus, if you start out with a great big long piece of thread and you don't use all of it, you can sometimes like trim it a little bit and then use smaller chunks of it for later. So, okay, first one here, we're gonna sew this here. So the way I'm gonna be doing this is I go through my first hole, okay, and then I come up here, go through my second hole, pull them even and tight, and then I'm going to take the thread from my outside hole, loop it around the leather along the outside, and put it back through that same hole so that I have thread looped around the edge like that. Okay? And then we're just going to do a simple saddle stitch. So the reason that I like to go around the edge like that is because it will add just that little bit of extra security and extra strength by wrapping around the side of that leather. Now, you probably don't need to do that, but I figure on something like a wristwatch where I'm going to be swinging this thing around and banging it on things and who knows what I'm going to be doing, having a little bit of extra thread going around the outside like that, it's not going to hurt it, and it just adds that, it's just a little bit of extra security to me, knowing that it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so throw back through the middle, and back up here. Okay, and now another thing that I'm going to be doing is when I trim the threads and I melt them, I'm going to be doing that on the outside edge, because I have in the past had it where I didn't do a good enough job melting that and getting it flat, and then it was rubbing and chafing against my wrist and just driving me insane. So let's just solve that problem by just keeping it on the outside. Okay, there we go. So there's our first loop done. So you can see from the impression from here that next is where it goes around. So we got to have enough room for it to go through here, right? So, oh, my battery's about to die. I'm going to pause this, change the battery. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a reverse engineering here. So now that I know I've got the first loop, it goes about 4.5 inches until the middle of where it bends here. Okay, so I'm gonna do, let's mark out our 4.5 inch mark here. Okay, so 4.5 inches to the center of the bend. Okay, and now the center of the bend is where our buckle here goes through, which is going to be this one here. So I have a rotary tool that will be perfect for this. 1 second. Okay, rotary tool. So this is the Tandy rotary tool that has the replaceable heads. So I'm going to put this on our largest size, and I'm just going to punch a hole in the center for where our buckle is going to go. Okay, now we're going to grab our buckle and we're going to feed that through. Okay, so I want to go, so we want this to go up like this, right? So we want, to go like this. Okay, there we go. So now I want to punch some stitching lines as close to that buckle as I can, so that I can have as much room as I can to get this around my wrist and for that watch to sit properly. So we're going to go here and right about there. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to be doing the next 2 rings after that. So first, before we sew this up, we need to get our 2 other rings on there first, okay? So 1 ring, 2 ring. And now these rings, they've got a little split weld at the bottom. So I want to make sure that those are on the bottom of the leather so that they don't show there. Probably doesn't make that big a difference, but I'll know. But the big thing is you don't want to have that split weld facing out to outside. This doesn't quite look right. Okay, so now we go here. Okay, there we are. So we're gonna sew this part together. And so you notice how I've got the one ring sewn on as the anchor here. These two are floating freely. And then this buckle here, and then we're going to sew this together. So the reason that you put these rings on first is because once you get this buckle sewn in, there's no way to get those in here, okay? Okay, and there we go. There, and here. Through the needle, there. Now, when you're sourcing out your needles, something to consider is going to be the size and the thickness of your needles. I'm not very good at like knowing the precise names of certain things. I know that when I buy blunt-ended needles from Tandy, you can get them in like 10 packs or 100 packs, that kind of thing. And I know that they're not bad. Like they're good needles, and I do use them. They're definitely one of my favorite sets of needles. But they are a little bit thicker, right? There's also something called Glover's needles, which has a little triangle pointed end on it. And so that's good for moments where you're going through the leather and you have not already pre-stitched a hole, or where your hole is not very great and you need to kind of widen it for yourself. These ones, I got them from some AliExpress vendor, and they're small and they're thin, and they're not very sturdy. Like I could definitely break this in half if I was just to pinch it with my thumb and finger. But what I like about them is for a job like this, where I'm trying to go through my stitching hole and trying to make sure that I go beside the last thread through and not through the last thread through, if that kind of makes sense, because you don't want to go through the center of your thread, you want to go beside it. Then I find that these ones are really great for that because they are so thin. Usually there's enough room in my stitching chisel hole that I have enough room to work with in order to go around that thread. Whereas some of the thicker ones, like the ones that I buy from Tandy, they tend to just kind of like go through the heart of that thread, which sometimes is not quite what I want to do, especially on something kind of like this. So anyway, just something to think about. Also, plus, because they're from AliExpress, they are cheaper than the ones that I get from Tandy. However, as I always say with AliExpress, you absolutely get what you pay for, and sometimes you don't pay much. Okay. There we go. So now we need to mark out our stitching holes for the first loop and the second loop. So I want to get this as tight as I can to the side, because the more room that I can give in the middle for the watch face, then the better. Okay? In fact, this actually might be a hair too long. We'll see. That's the other beautiful thing about doing a leather watch strap like this, is that it will over time form to the shape of my wrist and the shape of the watch. It'll start out feeling kind of weird as I wear it, but over time it'll feel natural. It'll feel like it'll just go on like my normal. It'll feel like you just wake up and just, you know, you feel naked without the thing, right? So there we go. And let's do another round with the needle and thread. Honestly, the most time-consuming part of this particular project is threading your needle. So this is the kind of nice project that you can, you know, put on an audiobook, put on a TV show or a movie. I like to kind of judge time by TV episodes. So, you know, like if you can do a project inside of one episode of Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones or whatever, like one like good hearty TV show, then that's a pretty good project. You know, if it only takes you 45 minutes to an hour to finish. I started this video at 7 o'clock. It's now just before 8. And so this is absolutely something that you can do inside of an hour if you have all your bits, all your tools lined up ahead of you. And you're not hunting around the shed looking for stuff like I am. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to go around through here. Pull that tight. And there. And there. Now something else that's neat and I think interesting about using a natural leather strap is because the natural leather, it is skin. I mean, this is skin tone, right? As I wear this and as I sweat in this, it's gonna pick up the oils and the salt. Like it's gonna pick up the sweat from my wrist, and it's gonna patina and darken over time. And also the sun's gonna also darken it and burn it a little bit. So when I get this done, I'll see if I can find in a tin an older one that I had worn to show you what it would look like after you wear it for a while. Yeah, after I do this, I'm going to pause the video. I'll go digging in my cookie tins. That's right, I keep important things in cookie tins, just like your grandmother. Don't you know that's where all the best buttons and sewing needles and important bits and bobs are kept, right? Okay, so now we need to get our last ring. Get that good and tight up here. Okay. There we go. And let's get another bit of thread on here on this needle. We're in the home stretch. Okay. And, that's the other thing about using these smaller, cheaper needles is because they're so small. Like if you got big paws for hands, sometimes it's hard to pick the darn things up. But what's life without a little adventure, right? There we go. Okay. So now, let's go through here. Okay. See, I was just about to do something very silly. I was about to go through the wrong side of my metal loop. So you got to pay attention and make sure that you got that pulled all the way back when you put your needle and thread through. See, that right there is a moment that would have caused me no end of frustration if I didn't notice it until for like 2 or 3 days or like after wearing it. Oh, I forgot to loop around the outside. No problem. I'll just go back a little bit. Back through. There we go. Tighten you up. And then through. And then back to schedule program. There we are. So some people like to use stitching ponies. I'm sure they're great. I don't have one personally. I find I've been getting along fine without one. It just seems like another thing to just take up space. And I find that most of the time, when I'm doing my sewing, what I tend to do is I'll throw my project into a little plastic bucket, and I'll take it in the house. And when the kids are getting ready for school in the morning, I can be sitting on the couch sewing something. If I'm gonna go into the office and I know I'm gonna have a day with a bunch of meetings that, I think we've all been there. You can take it with you, and you can get 2 or 3 stitches in while you're waiting for your boss into the room, or if you're commuting. Depending on the size of project, something like this, I could easily make this on, assuming I had the holes punched. But like to do the sewing bit, I could do that on the train while I was, on the morning train, right? Okay, so now here's what we got to do. Okay, so this is all. Hold up, bugger it. I put the buckle on backwards. See how on my first example, okay, so this is the flap that goes down, and then the buckle is curved that way. Look what I just did. I got it curving the wrong way. That's why I shouldn't talk and work. Okay. It's 8 o'clock. I'm gonna race to try and get this done before I gotta start work. I'm gonna turn the video off and I'm gonna redo this. One of these days I'm gonna do a video where I get everything right the first time. Okay, see ya in a flash. Okay, so I'm back now, and good news and bad news. Good news is I fixed one problem. Bad news, I found another problem. So, this is gonna drive me insane. Okay, so on my working one, see how I've got the buckle, it's got my curve down, and then I've got the two rings going up because your strap goes through here and then through there, right? Look what I did on this one. My buckle is going down the right way, but when I go and put my strap through, no rings. I put my rings on upside down. Ugh. I should not do things before I've had my morning coffee. I will see you in another couple of minutes after I tear out these threads and these ones and put the rings on the right way around. This is turning into a little bit more of a morning project than I thought it would. Okay. Alright, so let's undo this. Okay. And then let's undo this. Okay. Those rings are out now. Okay. So to make this simpler, I'm going to undo the strap at the end with this loop, because I know that my buckle was on right, and frankly, at 8 o'clock in the morning, when I need another cup of coffee and the coffee maker is in the house and I'm in the shed, I don't trust myself to put that buckle on the right way again the third time that I put the thing on and off. So we're going to make it simple. We're just going to play with the rings. Okay, so our anchor is off. Our rings are out. Now what we do, we feed our first ring through, split down, so that it's going to go through like this. Okay, so you got your buckle, and then your ring, and then your bottom flap underneath. And we're going to sew that up. Ugh. You know, you ever have, okay, so I'll be honest with you here. I have ADHD. I did not get diagnosed with ADHD until I was an adult. My kids, they were 5 and 6 years old. The kids were getting diagnosed with ADHD, and I didn't think I had a problem. I figured I could just, between the coffee and the beer and the orange juice, if I drank the right ones at the right time and the right amounts, I could get through the day. And, for many people that's mostly true, right? But my family doctor noticed many moments like this in my life. And she looked at me and she said, "You give this pill to the 6-year-old. What have you got to lose, Tim?" And I said, "You know what, doctor? You're probably right. I should man up, suck it up, and, admit that I am not perfect and that maybe, yes, I need a little help from some medication." And I must say, since I went on to that medication for ADHD, it did improve things for me in my job, in my family life. It helped me focus a lot during the day. Um, I now, as an adult, take a pill every single morning, and I do not begrudge it at all. However, all that being said, this here is proof positive of a moment where sometimes I forget about that. Sometimes I get talking and doing something and I lose track of my hands and my mouth. Uh, I used to do this thing where I would drive friends home from work. Like we're all living in the same city, and I'm on the east end, and you're on the middle downtown, and or you're gonna wait on a bus, and it's gonna take longer for the bus to get here than for me to argue with you. So just get in the car, and I'll just drive you the 4 blocks to your house, even if it's a little out of my way, kind of thing. I was that guy, right? And I like to think people like that about me. I'm a little biased, but I like to think about it. But I cannot tell you the number of times that I would be having a good conversation with someone in the front seat of the car, and then, next thing I know, "Oh, hey, Tim, we're in the wrong neck of the woods. Hey, Tim, you missed my turn a little bit there. Hey, Tim, can you get back off the highway, please?" So this journey of making YouTube videos and documenting the way that I make things, it is going to be a fun adventure for the both of us here, because I just had a moment where a little ghost over my shoulder said, "Hey, Tim, can we get off the highway, please?" Okay. Very nearly done. We truly are in the home stretch this time. This time we truly are in the home stretch. This video is turning out to be a lot longer than I thought it was going to be originally. Okay. I thought I was just going to make a quick little thing before I started work in the morning. It's a good thing I gave myself a good 2 hours before work. That makes for a fun story, though. Okay, so there, through there, and there. Okay. There. Okay. Now we're good. So if you are going to be doing NATO straps like this, If you're gonna do just like a one-off for yourself, watch a video like this. There's other videos online of how to do this. This is by no means a rocket science. Another option, go on AliExpress or Temu or whatever, Amazon, and buy like a super cheap NATO strap for like 10 or 20 bucks so that you can see how it's constructed so that you can then copy it, right? Because the way I spotted my mistake was by looking at a good one and realizing, oh, I didn't do it exactly like that, right? So something to consider, you know. I personally do not think of things as stealing. I think of it as getting inspiration. Okay, so now our last ring goes on here. This one I do want to go like that. And yeah, let's try it. Might have enough extra thread on that one that I can reuse it. This might be just long enough for us. And then I don't need to rethread 2 needles, just the one. Okay. Truly home stretch this time. Oh yeah, beauty. Beauty. Okay. There we go. There. 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 Here. There. And then around the edge. And there we go. Okay. We are cooking now. Huzzah! There. Perfect. Okay. So, now what we need to do is put our wristwatch through. So, I like so some people like to wear it where the buckle is on the outside part of your wrist. I like to wear it where the buckle's on my inside. And the main reason for that is because I spend a lot of time at a keyboard, and if the buckle's on the bottom of my wrist, where my wrist is resting against the keyboard, it just feels like bulky and in my way. So, we're going to take the face of our clock and put the 6 down towards the bottom. Push and pull it through. Okay. And then this strap goes through our top bar. Okay. And then it goes through this ring here. There we go. So now this is going to sit on my wrist like that. So now all we got to do, like I said, now I knew in the beginning this was going to be way too long for what we need. But that's not such a bad thing because, you know, you can always use an extra strap lying around somewhere. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my center line, and I'm going to use the rotary punch to punch some holes. And I'm going to use my ruler in order to make sure that I keep my line straight. Okay. Okay, and then for this, so my buckle needs, okay, so this one is about the right size for my buckle. So I'm going to start down about, so on my old one, it only went to about there. So I'm going to start a little bit further down. I'll start about here. And now this is how I'm going to do my spacing. I'm going to do one punch, and then I'm going to do like a ghost punch beside it, like an impression, and then I'll do my punch. See? And so that way I'm going to be able to keep my spacing about right. But as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that might be too big for my buckle. So let's do a check. So that actually, you know what? That's just about right. That gives enough room for that to go through without any trouble. So let's do this. We're going to go ghost and then punch, ghost and then punch. Now you can probably make this look neater by doing like measuring it out, using a compass or a wing divider to make your spaces, buying a template ruler, that kind of thing. But for something that I'm just going to wear as just something for myself, then, you know, this is good enough. And I mean, at the end of the day, I work in a shed. I am all about things don't need to be pretty, they just need to work. This is about as utilitarian as you can get. Okay, do a couple more just to be safe. Alright, so now, when I go and put this on my wrist, okay, so that gets me to about there. So that feels about right. And then we're going to go up through here. And then you go down through the next loop again. Okay, here's another problem. See, I need to skive this again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it about here, because I don't need all that great big long length. Okay. And actually, I'm going to cut a couple more holes, just in case I well, let's be optimistic. Maybe I'll lose some weight. Maybe I'll go on a diet. Maybe that salad my wife is trying to get me to eat will eventually kick in. Okay. And cut you off about here to start. Okay. Okay. Through here. Okay, so I need to put a little bit of a point on the end of the strap here so that it'll move in and out a little freer, and I need to skive this part here a little bit. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so still a little too thick on the tip there. Okay, so this leather was, I believe, a 4 to 5 ounce. So in hindsight, I probably could have done a 3 ounce, or even a 2 ounce. Make it a little bit thinner. Okay, there we go. So there we are. So a little, you know what, yeah, I'm going to skive that again because it's got to be able to pull it out. Yeah, this is too hard to pull out like this. Okay. There we go. Let's try that again. Perfect. All right. So now this bit that's flopping around here, I'm going to cut it about here. I don't need to be quite so long. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So about 4 holes up from the bottom. One, two, three, 4. And then give it a little bit of a point. Okay. There we go. Beauty. Alright, so now that that is done, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to go digging through my bins and I'm going to find the one I made that I wore for a long time to show you how this is going to look after it gets worn for a while. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're back and I got my tin with the post-it note on it that says wristwatch stuff. So I like watches, I like mechanical watches, but I don't have a lot of money, so I tend to buy things off of AliExpress. So, but anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So look into, if you're going to be doing a lot of these, look into getting a set like this. This is a box with multiple bars, multiple widths. So, excuse me, no matter what size wristwatch you're going to have, you'll find one in here that you can use to replace the bar with. And it comes with a little tool that you can use to pry them off. But here's what I wanted to show you. So this is a wristwatch strap that I made for this watch. And it was made from the exact same leather. So you can see the difference in color. This one I wore for about a year and a half. And so it soaked up the sweat and the dirt and everything I was working on. And that's my alarm to go to work. So, thank you very much, and safe travels.